This is going to be an alarm system tour of the Lynx Touch L5200, Lynx Plus, and Lynx Touch L5210. I may make one whenever my L7000 wants to arrive, but for now we're just going to do these three. So, starting off with the Lynx Plus, it was the second Lynx panel in the whole Lynx series that came out. It was the Lynx, it's basically a Lynx R, but it's better because it's half alpha and it's mostly alphanumeric and more on the and a little bit of fixed English, because the screen on the Lynx R was so small that you couldn't really fit actual words on it. So it was just another panel that was like the Lynx R, but it got smaller and it became more compact, and everything's easier instead of all the buttons being on this side and just a pad being there. And yeah, so and then with its I don't really know how loud the Lynx R siren is. It could have gotten louder or quieter, but from what I know, this has an 85. When the Berg siren on this is on, it's an 85 decibel. Uh, it's not real. It's not loud. It's more ear piercing kinda. It's a more ear piercing kind of siren. So yeah, I'll show that later in this video. Then we have the Lynx Touch L5200. This was the first panel to actually use the Lynx Touch MSD updater tool, which, if I can find mine, which looks like this. It was the first panel to use this, and it could basically, what this would do is you'd put it in the Wi-Fi card slot of your panel, and then you'd power it down and scroll through the menus, and you'd update the firmware so that this can be more compatible with more Z-Wave locks like Schlage, Yale, Kwikset, and more. But it also gave you the ability to have LTE compatibility, since most of these Lynxes shipped with 3G communicators, and the firmware they had wasn't built for 4G, so you'd have to buy this, and you'd have to upgrade your panel to be able to use 4G. It doesn't really change much of the panel settings at all, but since this is a Canadian panel, I kind of screwed up, because I thought, so this panel arrived with a weird DIY battery that kept shorting the panel, and it would shut off every minute, and it wouldn't reboot. I'd have to let it sit off for 30 seconds. And I thought, oh, it's just the firmware, because the old L5200 died from that. So I updated it, but then I just I put the battery back in, and I recently realized that the battery was the whole problem, and that the firmware was nothing wrong. So this is basically an SIA panel now, even though it's Canadian, and the phone line jack it has is useless because it now identifies as an L5210 instead of an L5200. Now the last panel we're gonna do is the Lynx Touch L52. Oh yeah, also I don't know how loud the siren on that is. I have to get a siren reading out of it. But anyways, then we have the Lynx Touch L5210. This is the latest Residio or Honeywell panel being sold at the moment. I think they just discontinued it this year, but it's been the longest Lynx lineup. All the Lynxes have been discontinued. The L7000 was even discontinued before this, which is just basically this, but with a 7-inch touchscreen instead of this little small 4.3-inch touchscreen. So, consumers use this a lot, and this is why it was put in so many homes and why it's still used. And from what Alarm Grid says, I don't know if they were talking about the Berg siren or the aux siren, but they said it's 88 decibels. It definitely sounds louder than my L5100 when I had it. So I don't know. That could also just be because I had tape over it, but even with this, it's not much quieter, so yeah. It also was the first button Lynx that got rid of those rubber buttons and switched over to plastic, and they got better animations. So, like that, so.